Okay.
Good evening, Keepers of the Cash. Gary B, the Casual Comic Guy here, and joining me tonight on this very special episode where Cliff and John are going to discuss the top 10 storylines in their humble opinions that changed the face of comics when they happened. But before we do that, we're going to say hi to everybody out there, and we're going to start, of course, with the guy who's always first, Las Cruces. All right, and of course, I'm sorry, and I forgot to introduce them. John's Comics with Kids and Cliff on Comics. I mean, it's not like I'm old or anything, so I wouldn't be absent-minded in any possible way. So I don't know what that's about. Let's see. All right.
Your prostate is in good shape.
Brother John Comics, good evening. What's that?
I said, as long as your prostate is in good shape.
Well, I'll know Tuesday.
Men's Health Month.
Be
aware of your health.
It's actually Men's Mental Health Month, right? So that's my number one priority. But I've lost too many friends and associates over the past year, so I'm going to be beating it over your head, you know? I hope you get to use it a few times.
How you doing, Ryan? We got JP's Budget Collecting. Good evening, sir. Nice to see you. Okay, and as people are getting notifications that pop in, we got a couple different streams going on at the same time too, because I know Erotic Comics has a show tonight that just started as well. We're going to keep giving the tip of the hat to people as they come in, like always. And but first of all, we're going to start. It was established through committee. Cliff is going to go first. So, Cliff,
can we? I want to give a little preface to this.
Please go ahead.
I want people to understand the goals here that Cliff and I bandied around. Firstly, thanks, Gary, for giving us homework again.
You're welcome.
Gary gave Cliff and I a homework assignment, and it was storylines that changed comic books. And I want to preface this with two things. Number one, this is a strictly Marvel DC list. We're not going to be throwing any indies. There's no Golden Age classic stuff in here. We've eschewed modern indies as well. So this is a strictly Marvel DC list. Secondly, storylines means not that one issue. You're not going to hear Action Comics 1 on here because this is not a comic book that changed the industry. It's a storyline. So we're really focusing in on the plot and what those issues did to the medium in general. So expecting Detective Comics' first appearance of Batman or Action Comics 1, that's not what we were going for. Most people don't even know what happens in Action Comics 1. So really choosing that as a story that changed comics is not as accurate as an idea maybe that changed comics. So we're looking at plots and stories that changed the medium.
Correct. Yeah, things that once they came out, comics were a little bit different for that happening.
Exactly.
And
I would like to remind everyone that Superman beat the hell out of a man beating his wife in Action Comics #1. I mean, I'm gonna throw that on the table.
I did not. I've never read Action Comics 1. So I have no idea.
You are missing out.
Okay.
As a man of the people, he was leaping over buildings, patching thugs, slapping people. I mean, like, how dare you hit your wife like that? Pow, pow. You know, there was no
zoom to the moon.
Yeah. Oh no. Lois is in that speeding car. Let me run up on that car and grab it and let them know who they're dealing with.
So there you
go. Now, I think we should also mention, guys, that also you guys agreed on a certain number, then you kept some to surprise each other with.
Yeah, Gary knows nothing about this list. It's a complete secret to him. Cliff and I came up with a list of like 15 that we really thought were great picks. We whittled it down to 8 that we totally agreed on. And then each of us chose a secret pick that we have no clue what the other person chose.
I just want you to know that John like whittled it down to 8. He goes, "This is what I think." And I said, "And I think you're great."
He's like, "There's so much DC on there. I love it." Truly. Right.
But
so
mostly, I'm in so much mental distress this month that I'll agree to almost anything. Yay.
That's
so,
okay.
so you'll get 8 books and we'll rotate between each other to share that we've agreed upon. And then the secret last 2 will get revealed at the end.
Right. And hopefully we're going to have a lot of fun along the way. It's going to be a good time. It always is.
Brother John, I'll email you the syllabus, my man. I got you.
All right. So let's, hey, Puff, how you doing, man? Nice to see you. Yes. And Manny, how you doing tonight, sir? Great to see you. Yes, I think it's fun that I don't know these because I get to experience it live with my chat. So I'm good with it. And I don't want to rain on their parade. I'm here for the debate. I'm here for the agreement. And I'm here to push a few buttons whenever possible.
Well, let's start pushing a few Let's start pushing a few buttons because let me assure you, there's no Conan on this list.
Well, as much of a Conan fan as I am, I don't think anything that book did ever really. It's an important book, but I don't think it ever changed the history of comics.
I will say my favorite modern Conan story. I think I like the one that's going on now. But mostly I enjoyed the Brubaker one, with the tower and the mystery. Because I was like, oh, Conan has to be more than just a warrior. I love this.
First of all, Conan's always been more than a warrior. So you need to know your Conan. Now you're triggering me.
My Conan, and just let's be honest, most people just don't do it. Most people just don't bother, is my point.
Right. Well, I don't know. He was the top selling comic for quite a while in the 70s.
That's because there were so many closeted gays chasing them damn covers. Nothing back then. It was a nerve-wracking time for the homos of the past. God, may they rest in peace, so many of them.
Oh, so it's such a 58. You got Billy. Just so much good stuff. And a great one of the first alternatives to superhero comics that were so popular then too. It was great.
I mean, think about the covers where his chest is bared and snakes are coming for him. I'm just getting a sexual tizzy thinking about it.
Watch out!
Now,
all right.
Cliff,
So
we agree.
Cliff has the first pick.
We're going to start with you, so I'm going to make you big for a second, and you go with your first pick, Cliff.
My first pick is a little story from DC Comics called Snowbirds Don't Fly. It's a 2-parter that takes place over Green Lantern, Green Arrow, number 85 and number 86 in August and September of 1971, depicting Roy Harper, Speedy, as shooting heroin in front of a shocked Hal Jordan and Green Arrow. Art by Neil Adams and Dick Giordano. It is groundbreaking, as Green Arrow has no idea that his kid sidekick has been shooting up and turning to drugs.
Yep.
So there's the classic 85 cover.
Speedy. Poor Speedy. This is a book way ahead of its time as far as cultural significance. You talk about really diving into the topic of drugs, superheroes dealing with something that is incredibly humanizing and tragic, and characters that were so innocent losing that innocence. I think it was a big jump in what comics could do and what heroes could go through.
And this was also during the Comics Code, and they decided to go against it, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Which is pretty interesting because the Comics Code appears on the cover. I don't know how they got away with this.
But you think about all the plot lines that have come out of this, and things that this did in comics, the revolution that it kind of caused. I think even as someone who's never read it, I recognize the significance of what this is.
Yes. And it had lasting impact on the character forever.
Yeah.
This is just a cemented portion of Roy Harper's past now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Well, a good first pick. So I take it that, John, that was also on your list?
Absolutely. Even though I've never read it, I knew instantly that would make the top 5 for me as just an obvious choice.
Nice. All right. So, John, we're going to make you big for a second. We're going to go with your option 2.
Yeah. So I'm going to go, that's a character dealing with drug issues. I'm going to go with a different kind of tragedy. I'm going with the death of Gwen Stacy storyline. JP guessed this in the chat. This is Amazing Spider-Man 121. And of course the follow-up, including the death of the Green Goblin 122.
Matching 7.5s, no less.
And you know, they have the barcode that is numerical as well. They were clearly slabbed at the same time. So yeah, 1973, iconic covers and stories. And for me, this was the #1 Marvel pick that jumped into my mind when this topic was announced. Having Peter Parker lose big, and then have to deal with that, the repercussions of that ongoing. This is for, in my opinion, the best example from the Marvel side of these topics. This idea that a story could then change something forever, because it changed Spidey forever. I think it changed what Marvel could do with their characters forever. And ultimately, this has just been something that is left an indelible print on this comic world.
Right. And also just one of those defining characteristics for Peter Parker, right? He's always being taught through events that he can't save everybody, no matter how hard he tries, that sometimes it's just not going to make a difference. And how does he deal with it, you know?
Yeah. And if you grew up like I did when I was reading comics, Gwen Stacy was always this sort of looming shadow. And I had read this in trade paperback many times as a young kid when it was first coming into understanding why I liked Spider-Man and that universe. The death of Gwen Stacy was pivotal to that universe. Long after, I mean, I was reading, it was 1970. So I think 13 years later, I'm reading Spider-Man, knowing the significance still at that point from this.
Right, because the death of Gwen looms, and let's not forget the Gwen clone that was just lurking and tormenting him and it was like years. The editors were like, "Yeah, just stick her in there."
Oh, in the 90s during the Clone Saga, when another Gwen clone showed up, I'm like, "Come on already."
How about when Gwen's identical looking daughter showed up? That one still gives me agita.
Right.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the Stacys should have learned. You stay away from anybody named Parker. Parkers and Stacys, they're not good for each other.
Dangerous.
Please stay away from anyone named Osborn. Just get out of the city. If you know an Osborn, just leave.
Well, she wasn't to stay dead forever. We got the multiverses, and now we get plenty of Gwen.
Yeah.
Yes, a very young Spider-Woman, Ghost Spider Gwen.
Right. All right, Cliff, on to you for the third pick, sir.
I'm going to pick one near and dear to me because it is the first Marvel saga that I ever read, and that is the Dark Phoenix saga.
Nice.
And it kind of solidified my love of Jean Grey and Phoenix and the X-Men. And probably cemented why so many people love the Claremont run. I mean, it's got everything. It's got action, adventure, the Hellfire Club.
Yes.
I mean, like Wolverine fighting alone in the tunnels. So there's like key moments where Wolverine is the coolest thing ever. Wolverine fighting his way into the Hellfire Club alone is an absolute pivotal Wolverine moment. It is pure Logan. Logan is doing what is it? He's the best at what he does. Like, that is the moment. He's just like, like just clawing people. Like, I'm coming for my friends.
That cover is so good too.
It's a great cover. The whole freaking thing is so cool. The Imperial Guard, which of course I already loved the Legion of Superheroes by that point in my life. So the Imperial Guard being an absolute knockoff of the Legion is fantastic. And the fact that Wolverine beats up Fang, and Fang is a knockoff of Timberwolf, and Wolverine is a knockoff of Timberwolf. Fight me. I don't care. I love it. I love it. It is great. And then Jean being like, I can't do this, Scott. I can't fight it every moment, every day. And freaking having the freaking thing blast come down on her. X-Men, the animated series, covered it beautifully. I mean, they fucked up that movie. But nothing, I just can't say anything bad about this series. I just love this series.
Now, JP, we didn't say there wouldn't be a Secret Wars. All we said was that we're jumping to this event right now.
This is we're only 3 in right now, guys.
We're not going chronological. We're going to skip around a little bit, although these first 3 are pretty much in chronological order. We went 71 to 73, now 1980.
Right, and no one ever talks comics without the Dark Phoenix coming up at some point.
I would like to think so. I would like to think so.
As a big X-Men fan, I struggled to think of like the X-Men story that changed comics, and for me, I think it boiled down to Dark Phoenix in the end, because I mean I loved it. It's my favorite X-Men book. That's my favorite X-Men book, period.
Right, but that's one book.
Right.
But the Phoenix Saga
the Phoenix
as an
saga
event
is a saga.
Yeah, it really, like, to Cliff's point, you're talking about Emma, you're talking about Kitty, you're talking about the Hellfire Club, the grounding idea that the worst enemies that the X-Men face are often themselves in some form or another. This
just such a bold character with Jean Grey, right?
Yeah. And then, of course, that tragic end, right? That tragic end to it. I think it all summates kind of what the X-Men universe has now become. You know, it's cemented an idea that bleeds through until today.
So as an X-Men person, do you believe that is the most significant X-Men tale that has ever been told, the Dark Phoenix saga?
I think it's the one that changed comics the most. I think if I wanted to boil X-Men down to a single issue or story, it's the one you just held up, God Loves, Man Kills. As a single volume is probably capturing the quintessential elements in one piece. And that opening page, and that when you have the kids that were murdered and, you know, they're hanging in the swing set.
That was rough. That was a rough start to that story.
And then Magneto comes in and just smokes those guys. It's like
amazing. And I'm sure if they reprint it now, there's going to be some words changed in there too. Because there's
Kitty Pryde dropping that N word.
Yes,
they reprinted it, and I don't remember them changing anything.
Yeah, they did. They just recently did like a 2-volume like comic book size, not magazine size.
Yeah. I didn't buy that though. So was it faithful or?
It was identical. It was
identical. It was just they did a different size. That was all they did. Was resize it. Yeah.
And there you go. Yeah, Chris agreeing with you guys. Incredible.
Oh, I forgot.
I remember just and I was reading it today. Just that opening with the kids is just really rough.
And I considered adding that one. It was definitely on my long list, but I think Cliff and I decided that really, a story,
I think
Phoenix Saga makes more sense.
And if I wanted to give something that shows you the most of X-Men, I'm still going to choose the Dark Phoenix Saga.
Oh yeah.
You get all these characters, you get all this action, and you get a biting story. You get the whole mix.
And you get the larger scale.
Is a powerful one shot, but in my mind, it's still not. This is the first X-Men thing I want you to read. Like, that's still not my go-to.
Yeah, no, it's fair, totally fair.
All right, so nice. So we are back to John for the next one. So let's get him over here. And John, number 4, sir.
We went from Dark Phoenix. I'm sorry, JP. I did not choose Batman Year One. I thought the better pick is Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller, 1986. And I'm jumping out of chronological order on this one a little bit here. This one meant a ton to me as a young person, but ultimately, I think it was the Elseworlds Batman that recontextualized Batman and became the blueprint for Batman forevermore. Like, Batman is not the same after Dark Knight Returns. And it's not necessarily canon because it's like an alternate future version of Batman. But boy, did it become the groundwork for what Batman ultimately is now. You know, you look at the stuff that Neil Adams was doing versus the stuff that happened after Frank Miller. And I think Frank Miller forever changed the universe of Batman. And I think it happened with Dark Knight. Ooh, there I am. And Dark Knight Returns, as much as I prefer rereading Year One over Dark Knight Returns, this left the change. This left the fingerprint. You know, this changed it in a bigger way for me.
There we go.
Unfortunately. So I agree with John, but at the exact same time, I feel like it did more harm than good.
Totally.
I feel like DC decided, this is what we need to keep chasing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure
whether it's changed for the better or the worse is a completely different conversation.
We agree on the change. The change is very heavy duty.
And I think to your point too, Cliff, I think it ultimately, the biggest flaw for me that came out of it is that a lot of fans view this as canon Dark Knight. This is what he should look like. This is how he should behave. And as a result, you end up with, in my opinion, Zack Snyder's Batman is this. He basically took this as his blueprint and said, that's how Batman should behave. And I fundamentally disagree. As much as I like it as an Elseworld, it's not Batman. It's an alternative. He's at the end of his life feeling like he's failed, and now he's going to have extreme methods. Batman. It's not Dark Knight.
Yep.
Nice. All right, so good agreement. Also, just one of those stories that's talked about constantly in the comic book community, and another cover that's homage constantly.
That showdown on Crime Alley is so great.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's like, where did Green Arrow come from with the freaking kryptonite arrow? It's like so good.
Or that wrestle in the mud where he's taking that guy out in the fight in the mud. I love it.
I thought you guys might have picked Death in the Family, but
I mean, you could argue, but it really changed 900 numbers more than anything else.
Right. True. That's a valid point because I mean, yeah, Dark Knight Returns changed who Batman was.
Yeah.
All right, so Cliff, I guess number 5 is going to be you, sir. So
number 5 is possibly my favorite.
Oh,
and I
think I know which one he's going with.
Where are you? I know I have one of you somewhere.
Well, if you have one, I'll let you show it.
I'm trying.
It'll save me Googling some images real quick.
Crisis on
Infinite that one I knew was going to be on the list.
Yeah.
I love Crisis on Infinite Earths. I reread it annually. I chased the issues as a kid as I try to re-piece together what the hell I didn't understand about the DC universe. And, I mean, issue 1, the crime syndicate is fighting to save their world. And Ultraman makes a comment about how it's funny that they spent all this time, their whole lives, trying to conquer that world and maintain control over it. And now in their final moments, they are willing to die to save it. And he flies and in a very Superman manner. He's like, we face it head on, and he flies straight into the antimatter wave. Like hoping that all of his Ultraman greatness will actually do something. But like that's just issue 1. And then of course you have the Flash appearing before Batman. He's freaking deteriorating. He's like, Bruce, like, Batman, people think Batman's crazy because he's like, yo, I saw this like ghost of the Flash. As the issues continue, then we're introduced to Harbinger. We're introduced to the Anti-Monitor. Prior to this, actually, we got a couple glimpses of Harbinger because she started snatching people up from across space and time. And then they assemble this they assemble their own super team, at the edge of forever or whatever in the Monitor's tower. And he's like, yeah, Earth 2 Superman, Dawnstar from the 30th century, John Stewart, Green Lantern. It's like what do you call it? Sergeant Rock and your Howling Sergeant Rock and your soldiers. And Geoforce, and it's like all of you need to protect these towers, and then you have shit like Sergeant Rock and his company and Geoforce protecting Markovia, and they see Nazis coming in the midst of the chaos because they're supposed to be fighting shadow demons, and Geoforce is like, not my country, and the freaking soldiers are like, you got it, dude. Like, Geoforce is taking out Nazis with freaking Sergeant Rock. Or just like, and then of course, just the antimatter wave, just destroying and killing and destroying and killing, and the worlds recombining and the sacrifices that were made. I mean, like the Anti-Monitor, he finally shows up. We learned that he's using psychopirates to manipulate people's emotions on a grand scale across the multiverse. He's got the antimatter cannon destroying the multiverse. He's got Flash kidnapped, using his Speed Force energy to power up some of his weapons, and that's in the Cordian area, and we get to see the Weaponeers in all their greatness. And then so what is it? I think Flash dies first, right? Like Flash gets free. The Cordians are a menace. He grabs Psycho Pirate, and with the freaking appropriate with the appropriate face mask, right? And starts zooming around and like giving all these different feelings to all the Weaponeers to make them crazy. And then he just starts running to destroy the antimatter cannon. And as he does, and he's swept up in this wave of antimatter and Speed Force, that's how he starts deteriorating. And everyone who's getting a glimpse of him, Wally, Bruce, it's all these moments as he's deteriorating out of existence, right? So that's beautiful. And then, of course, and it made me cry. And then they have this beautiful passage at the end. And then when Supergirl dies, they're going head on after the Anti-Monitor. They've chased him down. Supergirl, Superman, Superman 2, which is, you know what I mean, Earth 2 Superman, Mon-El of the Legion of Superheroes, other, Kryptonian-sized powers, Martian Manhunter, the new Dr. Light, who isn't even sure she should be a hero. And they charge this freaking base. They are taking no quarter, and they're just going in deep, And Kimio is flying. She's just like got her little blip. That's Dr. Light. She's just like flying in on her light beam, following Supergirl. Supergirl hears Clark in danger, is smashing through everything. Freaking Dr. Light is just following her, like, damn, this girl, like, woo, this girl's hot. Like, I'm like, let's do this. They get there. Anti-Monitor's got Superman bashed to the ground. She's like, Kimio, get my cousin. Flies in. Kimio's got Superman a little light pad. She's like, this is the bravest woman I've ever known. And I'm like, oh my God. Supergirl is beating the hell out of the Anti-Monitor, smashing his armor, yelling at her, get my cousin out of here.
I don't have any popcorn for this.
And then the antimatter from his chest cavity explodes, right? And of course, Supergirl's down. The other heroes finally start to arrive, right? And so, of course, Superman gets with it and jumps down there, and he's grabbing Kara. And he's like, Kara, like, you're going to do it. You're going to be all right. She's like, it's okay. You're safe. Like, she's telling him, it's okay. You're safe. And he goes, no. Like, no, tell me. And she's like, Clark, it's okay. I was brave because you taught me to be brave, And then forget it. I fucking lose it every time I read it. Every time I read it.
Can you go up and highlight JP's comment, the little paragraph he did earlier? Because I that's what I wanted to talk about. Because we had a little discussion about event comics and why Crisis is a better pick than Secret Wars. And
if I didn't just tell you why Crisis is a better pick than Secret Wars, I don't know. Check your books.
Let me give you a counterpoint. For me, Secret Wars as an event, as much as I love it, and as much as it was the first big, like, I don't want to call it a crossover event because it's not. The first big, like, team-up event, you could say. Secret Wars does not cross into other comics. It's not like you get an issue of this. There's no crossover to that. And instead, there's no big, like, the only big change to come out of it is Spidey gets a new costume. Like, you look at the rest of the story, none of these heroes die. None of these villains die. No big change. A couple of new characters added, but that's it. You look at Crisis, it's crossing over all of
rebooted the DC universe.
It's the whole universe impacting. Characters are dying. Storylines are starting all over. I think it just is the first real crossover event that is like publisher wide. And in the end,
every series.
The Thing started in a solo series, and She-Hulk traded out his spot. But I mean,
Julia Carpenter. And again, though, we're not picking our favorite stories. This is the stories that we think impacted comics the most, is what they're choosing.
And I think Crisis has that lasting impact because it was a brand-wide crossover event, unlike anything that had ever been done, and on a scale that had never been done. And I think it has lasted more as an impact because of the bold choices of characters dying, characters being reinvented, universes being shattered. It was a big,
and a creative team almost as well known as that storyline.
Yeah.
Marv Wolfman, George Perez, absolutely.
So for me, that was ultimately what edged it out. And it was, again, I thought about both for sure. And it just felt like historically what it did to change comics, it was the better choice.
And we even got Chris the Comic Vet stamp of approval. Woo! Well earned.
So all right, so that one was clearly Cliff.
No, I mean I agreed.
I didn't feel alone in that one.
He did not have to sell me that at all. That was the best part
favorite.
about it. Was like I knew it had to be included for sure.
Oh yeah, well, I knew it was going to be on there too. How could it not be? All right, John, you're up. And everyone knows I'm not a big DC guy, but important stories are important stories.
Right. I'm gonna go with a slightly more modern pick in the sense we're going 1989. I'm going with the first volume of Sandman, Volume 2. This is, in my opinion, a book that you talk to like modern comic fans, people who found comics maybe a little later in life, they will all reference how Sandman changed their lives, made them comic collectors, made them come to this genre. It is wild, the impact that this original story had on people. The universe that he crafted here, that Gaiman crafted, it reshaped an entire corner, in my opinion, of the DC universe. This whole, what ultimately became the Vertigo universe. Yep. You talk about Constantine, Swamp Thing. This really changed that whole corner of the universe for people, fans and the publisher itself. And it all starts with this first volume, this godlike character, this immortal character who's been trapped. Where has he been in this DC universe the whole time? The whole time you've been reading comics, he's been trapped by this horrible family. And it's affected the entire DC universe. You just didn't know it. They even had this, alternative Sandman character that Jack Kirby invented, trying to take over for him, and it didn't work. You get to see him escape. You get to see him reclaim his kingdom, reclaim his artifacts. And what that allows Gaiman to do is show you this entire corner of DC that no one was aware of until this time. And I think it absolutely, that first volume that you get, the volume 1 trade paperback, and you'll read it, has had a lasting impact across DC. And Vertigo ultimately exists because of this, in my opinion.
Right, and it's still a Vertigo still a Vertigo title.
It wasn't at the time. It was a strict DC title, and in fact, that first volume includes Justice League cameos because they were trying to like normalize it as a DC book. I think later they realized, no, you know what? We can take Swamp Thing, Hellblazer, we can make it this whole connected universe across the thing. So
it's hard to normalize Neil Gaiman.
I mean, or Moore, like you try to do Alan Moore. Can you normalize Alan Moore? Yeah, don't worry. We'll get to Alan Moore in a little bit. But yeah, I read this late in life. Like I'm still on volume 2, like I'm about halfway through the Gaiman run. But it was shocking to me whenever I would go into shops as an adult, how often this would be referenced by fans. Like it was that book that was like, oh, this changed my life. This changed my love of comics. This, reinvigorated my joy for the medium. All that kind of stuff came out of what Gaiman launched.
And that on the shelves looks strikingly different than anything else out there. It draws your attention and.
Absolutely. And shout out to Bottom Tier Collector, because he's way ahead of me in the second omnibus of this. I'm going to finish my second omnibus this summer, finally getting back to catching up after reading all the novels and stuff I've been trying to read.
Ooh, yeah, I've been trying to catch up too. So much reading all the time.
Right.
Novels, comics. All right, Cliff, number 7, and we're almost done with the top 8 that you both agreed on. So we're almost to the mystery part where you both picked 2 that you didn't tell the other, which is really interesting. But Cliff, number 7, sir.
Well,
I know you got we've left these 2 to last because it's like, which one do you want, Cliff? Which one?
Okay, we have a DC and a Marvel.
We do.
So which one do you feel more strongly about, sir?
I legitimately own both, like all the singles for both. I will admit having more love for the DC book, but it's fine, whichever you prefer. Whichever you feel like more comfortable talking about.
And I feel like a little, we really tried to avoid like single issue things.
Yeah.
Right? And this one kind of is a single issue thing.
It's the only one on the list that is one.
Only one on the list that we felt was worthy in its single issueness. Although the events of what caused it and leading into it would count as the event, right?
Well, you did have ASM 121 though.
And 122. It's a 2-issue story.
But still, yeah, I mean, important things can change comics in one issue.
Truly.
Exactly. And this is a big, big change. And that is the death of Captain Marvel.
The graphic novel. Yes, from 1982, the Marvel graphic novel.
Yep.
The Death of Captain Marvel.
I was 4 years old.
And
this thing was in this freaking just hanging up at the top of the shelf.
All right, Cliff, why was this a book that you felt like we should include?
Well, because for once someone had to stay dead. He has never been resurrected, and every time it appears that he has been, it's not him.
Right.
It's always been a scroll or time travel. So the only time it's ever been him was time travel. That was it. That was the most we were going to get. Yeah. You know, Marvel died and nothing was the same again. Heroes could die and that is it. Right. And everyone came to save him from the cancer that was caused from his radiation exposure to nitro, which, you know, when you looked it up, the nitro cover where he's standing over him is where things start to get hairy for him, because that's when he's overexposed to that radiation. Doctor Strange tries everything he knows how to do. It's absolutely magnificent, and you can feel it. You can feel it. It's so beautifully done. Like Mentor and Eros is Star Fox. They're there. Like Rick Jones is there, because, you know, Rick Jones is basically the it's the Marvel Snapper Carr. And none of you have put that together yet.
We were talking about it just on the other night, right?
I know. I felt you glossed over it with.
I had never heard of Snapper Carr until this. I
know, but I'm like, how do you know that they're just like?
But it was an instant. And it's funny because they're both in those issues, that Avengers 1 and that Justice League of America 1.
And don't you forget it. And don't you forget.
Now, this is something I've never read, this particular graphic novel.
Which you of all people should.
I know, but every time I find it, it's super expensive.
Who gives a flying crap? I've seen you buy worse in the name of Conan.
There's definitely reprints out there you can snag.
Right, there's plenty of reprints. Buy this for the love of Carol Danvers, for the love of God. Buy it for the love of Carol Danvers.
I know this is one of the big blotches on my comic reading history. Is this?
But you talk about a book that
like what kind of blotch could this be? I'm like, dude, the blotches on my comic reading history, the books are like $700. So I'm like, I've never seen this book like super expensive, you know?
But you talk about a book that had such a lasting impact. You know, the choice to give a hero an incurable disease and give them an epic swan song, just, you know, that really is fitting for the hero that they were. What a bold choice. And then to stick by it, which is the lasting impact portion, where they just were willing to say, this worked so well, we don't want to touch it. We want to leave this alone.
Well, you want to know one of the powerful things about this story. Jim Starlin wrote it as a means to cope with his father's death. His father had died of cancer, and he had a desire to retire this character, right? Because he had spent a lot of time at Captain Marvel, and you know, this was it. And he was quoted as saying this was cheaper than going to a shrink. But yeah. You know, but you could tell the art, the imagery, the story, everything, muted colors, heavy inking, like it's all very, very intentional. It's very vibrant to read, especially, you know, that's the only thing I would say about the original printing. Like, I feel like the original printing is going to look the way it was intended to look, right?
Sure. That's what I've been chasing too.
Yeah. So
I should just get a reprint and read it though.
Well, I think like the first reprint, like the white one, I think that's like safe. But I think later reprints, it starts to lose the detail. But anyhow, yes, excellent. And I guess because, you know, I've met Jim Starlin, I've actually gotten to talk to him. It's really impressive. You know, and like, yeah, it's true. Gwen, Bucky, Jason Todd. I mean, the real Gwen never came back. I mean, if we're gonna be fair, Gwen has stayed dead. The real Gwen is dead. The real Captain Marvel is dead.
And not only that too, though, his death is still felt because no matter what Carol Danvers series it is, she always brings him up.
Yeah,
it's like his death is still always an affecting factor to her. She
Absolutely.
always feels a duty to living up to that name.
Right, like she did it. Like at one point, do you remember a while back? I mean, this is a while back now, even though it feels like yesterday to me, where she's like fighting alongside Cap in the streets, you know, and she's like, "Oh, I'm not sure if I'm gonna do Warbird or Miss Marvel," and he's like, "Carol, like, what are you doing? Take the name that you know you should take."
Right.
And then right after that is when she becomes Captain Marvel. So I always, it's very, very impactful, and that's why it wins for a single issue and broke into our list.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a graphic novel, so it's a little bit longer, so it makes it. You got that as a cheat too.
So Gary, you had guessed before we went live, like God Loves Man Kills could be on this list, and I was like, oh, the graphic novel made the list, but not that one.
That's okay. All right, so John, number 8, sir.
Yeah, the last one, JP guessed it in the chat. Our Alan Moore inclusion is Watchmen, and it was another one that was really hard to dismiss. And you could argue that it was an indie book for a really long time until subtly it's been connected now permanently to the DC universe with characters like Rorschach popping up in other places. But it's hard to deny the impact that Watchmen had, both as elevating the form to almost a literature sort of status, or deciding to really show us that superheroes with that much power will often be just as culpable to corruption as we are. And let's dirty up our heroes a little bit and see what happens, because this is what gives us things like The Boys. It gives us things like The Incredibles. When you get to see heroes really struggling with their power, really struggling with the burden of that, I think it's absolutely pivotal to what is now just commonplace in comic character stories, is what Watchmen laid the groundwork for. Do I love it and do I think it's perfect or anything like that? No way. But it's hard to deny the impact Watchmen has had across comics.
You know, I think it's near perfect because it's its own thing, right? I feel like by letting people touch it, it's only made it worse. You know, like I didn't need to see like Doomsday Clock was not doing it for me. It was just not doing it for me. It still doesn't do it for me. And
I've never read it.
And you know what? I don't even know if there are some moments. I mean, it's Jeff Johns. Like Jeff Johns knows how to do certain things, but you can't. I don't have any booster gold on my wall yet, Carlito. Yet, wait and see. This gets to change it. I'll change this up every once in a while. But anyhow, Watchmen is all the things, right? Like the commercial success of Watchmen paves the way for The Dark Knight, paves the way for Neil Gaiman's Sandman, paves the way for Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol. Okay, that is what comes from Watchmen, and like I don't think we think about that enough, right?
Yeah.
Watchmen gives us formal experimentation, all right, with the use of page layouts, composition, the storytelling technique. There's no thought bubbles, right? Moral ambiguity, you already covered it. You know, we have realism, moral ambiguity to the genre, you know, and of course, for better or for worse, it encouraged creators to go to darker places.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, also like allowing us to be able to say this art form that had mostly been exclusively for children can be for adults. It can be for grownups. And really heavy, big topics can be discussed.
Right. Mature topics, philosophical questions, socio-political questions.
Absolutely.
Intricate plot structure, multi-layered symbolism. I mean, like it's pretty high art altogether. Yeah. I mean, I respect it. If it's not perfect, it's not perfect. But I mean, damn, it's damn near perfect.
Well, what's perfect? Nothing.
I mean, like if someone's going to tell me what's perfect, I'm going to tell them this is a perfect story. For what it is of itself, it is a perfect story of itself. I wish I had remembered this story last night. I was flaking last night. I was still entertaining.
And I would agree. I would probably not include Watchmen on my list of my personal favorite comics. But as far as this list and looking at things that changed, the industry or changed the form of comics, it's impossible to deny.
And I agree with that statement 100%, John, because it wouldn't make my favorite either. But you can't deny the impact.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't about our favorites. This is about storylines that we think had the most impact on comic culture.
Right. Yep.
In comic books. All right. So now we're to the two surprises.
I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. Was I too charged up? I don't know.
Yeah.
Never. There is no such thing.
Not possible.
We're going to see. Cliff is going to give the first surprise pick, and we'll see if John has it as one of his as well. So, Cliff, now, John doesn't know what this next pick is going to be. He may have it, he may not. But why don't you go ahead and throw us your sleeper undercover one that no one knows about yet?
I went as controversial as I possibly could because I decided, and John will know what it is as I finish talking. I decided to choose one that changed the course of comics because it did everything wrong.
Ooh.
And because they had to learn that we can't keep pulling this shit. People getting angry. Right? And I feel there's a lot to learn.
Sounds like the Clone Saga.
It is the Clone Saga. All right. Increased serialization with decompressed storyline. I want to vomit. Backlash against it. Absolutely. It was terrible. It went from 94 to 96. It was 2 long, excruciating years. I miss Superman less in the 2 years he was gone than I did with this clone crap that was going on for 2 years.
And that is the only comic storyline that as a reader just had me human. I was so mad at that storyline. One of the reasons too, and they still haven't learned because they still like to do clones. But
now they do it in a microcosm, right? You love all these Spideys, you love all these Venoms. Look, here are these Venomverse and Spider-Verse books. So they're like, okay, we can still profit from the bullshit, but we got to contain it. We can't have it run across the entire gamut of stories of Spider-Man life for 2 whole years because the editors are like, let's make more money.
Well, it did something worse than that, though.
What? Did you let me finish my list?
Because they slapped every Spider-Man fan in the face by telling them that Peter Parker they've been reading their whole life was fake. And when they tried that.
Like that wasn't like the rocket ship to kick it off. All right, they entered a world of trouble right there. Yeah, all they were thinking was like, oh, we need to take Spidey back to basics. I'm so tired of back to mother loving basics. I am over it. I am just so done. And every time I get invested in some comic, we got to go back to basics and basically forget shit that just happened. Piss me off. Nothing pisses me off like One Day More. And look at how good Ultimate Spider-Man is. Gee, I wonder why. Peter and Mary are happy with children. Ooh, yeah, you dumb bitches. It's a good story.
That's a whole nother show we can do. It's top 10 tropes.
And just because of that, just from what you just said, that's a whole nother show. Right here is the importance of Clone Saga. Everything wrong with Spider-Man begins right here. You know? And look at that poor man. Look at freaking, what's his name?
Ben Reilly.
Thank you. Look at poor Ben Reilly running around as Chasm, not knowing his head from his ass. And Peter is a motherfucker too, because let me tell you something. He's running around with a damaged brain with missing memories. And he's like, you're too dangerous. I can't trust you. You's a bitch, Peter Parker. He was you. And every time you need to feel with Spider-Man, fix that man's brain. Fix that man's brain, you traitorous bitch. If you had fixed his brain, you would have saved yourself a lot of trouble. But no. It's like when Jean had to backhand Madeline Pryor. Madeline made her point first. She's like, y'all took my kid. Y'all raised him without me. I mean, yes, I tried to give him to a demon, but, I was controlled by Sinister. Give me a break. Just saying, Dark Web was trash, but the fact that those two are victims of the heroes is absolutely true. Well, let me come back full circle to say that the negative reception in total to Clone Saga, right? I wrote a list.
I don't know anyone that likes it.
Betrayal, frustration, ridiculous twist, right? Emphasized the importance of maintaining readership, trust, and loyalty. So this hot display of 2 years of garbage, right? It was needed. Oh my God, what did Brother John say?
He wants you to go to mental health talks instead.
Mental health month is for your own sake.
Inner peace.
But it was
mental health month, and just for mental health month, and of course, Sunday is 17 years since I lost my father, and that's why I'm wearing a New York Giants shirt to remember him today. So it is. So this is for my mental health. So because it's June, I called my therapist and I said, I'm upping you to 1 a week this month, bitch. We're doing this, Dr. T. We're moving it up. So I have him with me every day this week, knocking it out. I'm sorry, every week this month, knocking it out. Oh my goodness, every day. Okay, nothing take me like that. No.
Well, that and then like every Spider-Man reader at that time, right? You're hanging with the title because like, all right, this can't last. They got to bring back the. But like you said, 2 years.
Yeah, y'all needed to fight the Empire. Stop buying the books. Be like, oh no, I gotta put this down.
Well, and that's the other thing they don't do well. Like all these other people are growing up now. Peter still keeps getting reset.
I know. Peter the college professor. I love Peter the college professor. Peter the inventor. I love Peter the inventor.
And he's supposed to have one of the best brains in Marvel. He's not Mr. Fantastic level smart, but he's pretty smart.
Right. That's why Peter the inventor was great. He had a new outfit every 2 weeks, and I wasn't even annoyed because I was like, "You do you, Peter. You do you with your Peter Tech Lab or Parker Tech or whatever the fuck it was."
And every writer, stop breaking up Peter and MJ. The book is always better with them together.
That's an editorial thing. The editors don't know what the fuck they're doing anymore. I don't even know what the fuck editors are doing anymore. When I interviewed that young man, JR, for his book Underground, his editors at Saturday PM, they actually edit. He goes, well, yeah, I write the story and I draw the pieces, and he goes, the first thing I did wrong with volume 1 was they were like, yeah, don't draw until we tell you what to do. Like, so the editors.
That's good.
So the editors were straight up like, JR, like, that's not how it works. Like, you give us the plot, you give us the story, we flesh it out. It has to fit into so many pages per issue, right? So, like, each chapter. So, like, they were, like, breaking it down. And, like, okay, these two fight scenes are great, but you really didn't explore these two characters' relationship from scene A to scene B. So we got you. And they wrote the new scene B to make what he gave them A and C. So then it worked and fit into 22 pages or whatever the case it is. And I was listening to him. I'm like, oh my God, you have real editors? I'm like, oh, I love you and I love them. I love everything.
Now, John, did that make your list?
It didn't, honestly, because I barely read it. I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. Right. And I was not into Spidey at that time. And maybe that's a result of this. I just I was away from the whole thing and I had no reference point for it. But as far as an epic cluster F, like it kind of fits, right?
Oh yeah, because I mean
it was cluster F-alicious.
So that was Cliff's first.
It clearly impacted Gary. That's why I knew for sure. I knew for mother loving sure no one was gonna choose this. I went hard as an outlier.
Now, for your first one that Cliff doesn't know, what have you got for us?
Yeah,
John?
so that was 9. I'm doing 10.
We're going to get to both your picks, though.
Yeah.
No,
okay. That was his pick. That was 9.
Oh, you guys only 10. Did one each. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We totaled 10. I went with Death of Superman. The
oh my God, I feel so betrayed right now. I feel so betrayed. How could you choose the Death of Superman?
He's not saying it's bad.
I'm not choosing it because it was garbage.
I choose the Death of Superman.
Be happy that it made the list now.
I feel betrayed by my own brain. I'm so upset right now.
No, it was in our discussions a lot, and I feel like it's a storyline that has huge impact on the
Do you
medium
not
of
see my
comic.
product cat right here? Do you not see my product cat?
You won't even let me talk when it's my turn.
And it was an event too, right, John? Like everyone bought those issues.
God. And so many, like, the armbands and the like follow-up storylines and the ways in which it connected to so many other comics at the time. I feel like it was an event way beyond just the comic medium, and as a result had these huge rippling effects in comics. To the betrayal, there you go, from the betrayal is fair. I feel like it was successful in that it did what it wanted and it accomplished the goals and gave us a ton of new characters, while at the same time the emotional weight of it, the impact it had on so many characters in that universe, it is by many bars you might want to register just success of issues sold and all these things. It is this paramount thing in comics this short time.
It made the newspapers, it made the headlines.
Everybody was talking about it, everyone was reading it, everybody was buying it. It was just this event, more so than a typical comic event. It was like a world event, and absolutely on a different scale, and that its impact has been lasting. Thank goodness the mullet didn't last as long as
I was gonna say, and there's one thing you learn: if you die and you come back with a mullet.
Which is why I'm avoiding that at all costs. But
coming back from the dead parts.
That part. I don't need the mullet either. But yeah, so huge impact as a storyline, and I think it just has to be included in a list like this. Even though I'm a Marvel guy, obviously at my core, I felt like there was just too many DC stories that reinvented comics and pushed that medium. It had to be yet another one for sure. Yeah, all of our stuff occurred between, to JP's point, everything that we went and chose was between 1971 and then whatever Clone Saga late 90s.
Because
everything fit in there.
FF1 wasn't on there because that changed the dynamic of how comics are done. It's a single
issue.
For me, it felt like Action Comics 1, where it wasn't the story that had the impact as much as the idea, right? This concept of like, the issue itself changed Marvel, but did the story do it, or was it just the idea, the superhero family? You know what I mean? Like, is it the plot in the book, or is it just the idea?
I think that one definitely fits the bill, but that's just again, these are our opinions, though. But there's no die.
I debated it, and we discussed it, and ultimately, we even felt like the bigger impacting story in FF was probably the Galactus story, and that one actually ranked higher in the end for me as an option ahead of FF1 was the Galactus story. But if you want to get into alternative picks, we got a lot of them.
Well, I thought we'd have a good little honorable mentions at the end of the show.
Absolutely, I'm ready. I already
got my first honorable mention.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Right,
so my
so
first.
Hold on. Not I hate that format right there. This is the one I want. There we go. All right. So Cliff, your first honorable mention.
The Walking Dead.
Whoa. We're not doing indies. We can't do indies. We got it. That's a separate.
Why can't it just be honorable mention for the hell of it?
We're saving indies for another Gary B show. I think he's got another.
Are we gonna do more homework, bitch? You don't call me in September. You're gonna ask me for another homework appearance. Come in September. All right, homework appearances are on pause for the summer of 2020.
That little red casual phone in your background, when it rings, you pick it up.
The one that's broken in the corner. Oh, whoops. I was like, if you're like, Cliff, I want you to show up and blah blah blah, I'll be like, okay, blah blah blah. Like, I just show me you need a talking head. You call me. You call with another homework assignment, and I'm gonna be like, nope. You and Izzy are on a 2 month ban.
But I asked you if you were game for it. I didn't make you do it.
I know you didn't make me do it. I know you did it, but I just realized that that at that point you were like my fifth homework assignment. I was like, oh no, this is that. And then I got a 6th and 7th homework assignment.
Gary B is a teacher. He's always giving out homework.
I must be cracking up. I must be cracking up.
I am not always giving out homework.
No, I know you're not. I'm just saying. So, like, I'm just letting you know, you are not allowed to press you with homework assignments for 2 months.
Well, that was John just coming up with that on the spot right there.
No, I don't know. That wasn't John coming up with the spot.
No.
I was talking about it behind the scenes with John.
I could have sworn Gary B's like, no indies. We're sticking to Marvel, DC. I'll do an indies thing maybe another time later down the road.
Yeah, well, I definitely wanted to do the big two.
Okay.
We can do indies another time, but I figured if we do another one of these, it'd probably be a couple months.
One of these in September featuring indies in September.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we don't want to do this every month. Every couple months is fine.
All right, but like, okay, so like things that have major impacts on comics that are Marvel and DC, like House of M was good, but I didn't feel like it was a first, right? But I guess in a way it was a first because it was a big sweep, you know. But I guess because I felt like Crisis was such a massive sweep that culling the mutants down to 198 mutants made me feel like, okay, you know. So like that would be one. Another favorite of mine would be Infinite Crisis. I thought Infinite Crisis and 52 were both excellent. And 52 is definitely not perfect, but 52 is excellent. And the fact that those 4 creative teams locked themselves up for a weekend, plotting the whole thing out, discussing who would write what parts and how it's going to work. And then they released that shit 1 issue every week for a whole year straight, I thought was absolutely. Brother John, Infinite Crisis is out of the trash. Oh my God!
I will say, John, I forced Cliff to keep that one as maybe his alternate. I pushed that one out of the top 8.
I didn't think it was total trash. Which part was total trash? I mean, Superboy Prime becomes annoying as shit, and I don't like the way Jeff Johns handled Wonder Woman, where he has World War II Wonder Woman giving up her freaking immortality to tell our Wonder Woman that, oh, you're just not human. I'm like, bitch, she's an ambassador. She's a heroine. She's a mother. She's a daughter. She's a sister. I was like, the most important thing about Wonder Woman is that she's fucking human. Jeff Johns, get your head out of your ass about Wonder Woman. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And she had her Slice and Clark up in the opening issue of issue 1. You know, so I have no feelings.
So John, do you have a pick?
I'm jumping on John. Brother John picked mine. Daredevil Born Again would be on my list. I think not only in the simple way that it changed Daredevil, like it dramatically changed Daredevil from that point on is a very different character than the original issues.
Right.
It changed his whole universe. It changed his connection to Karen Page, obviously changed his connection to his mom. It changed his connection to the Kingpin, and the use of the Kingpin in the Daredevil universe totally changed. So even within that simple, little universe, it changed. But I think ultimately it was in the same way Dark Knight Returns impacted DC and how dark and adult they could go. I think Frank Miller did the same thing at Marvel and really how dark Marvel could go with their characters. I mean, you had pornography and drug use and death and nuns who have babies and you name a button that Frank Miller didn't push in that story.
I know I have trouble letting people talk, but I think some of you use the word pornography way too loosely. I saw the silhouette of a boob and now it's pornography.
Right. I mean it in the sense that Karen Page is doing porn as her character is doing pornography.
Oh yeah, that was very unfortunate.
She's a drug addict and a porno star,
yes,
and a prostitute at the time we get Karen at the beginning of that storyline. So the character.
I was not happy with that change of pace for her.
I didn't love it either, but I like what it did to Matt, and I do love the way the Kingpin twists him for it, because ultimately that's the linchpin that gives the story its juice, right? Because now Kingpin knows his identity because Karen gave it up, and now Kingpin's going to manipulate Daredevil, and the whole journey he goes on in that story is just phenomenal. Yeah.
I'm going to give one as the host, and you guys didn't mention it. I did see it mentioned in the chat earlier. Kraven's Last Hunt. Like when I read that, I was like, ooh, now this is good. One, just the obsession part of it, right? With Kraven's obsession with Spider-Man And he's just Craven's mentally ill, and that comes through when he's written that well.
Yeah.
All right. And his obsession with just becoming the Spider, the craziness he's doing as him. And then you have Vermin, who is a literal monster, but makes you so sympathetic to this poor creature that's just being abused and misused over and over again. It's just trying to survive, and there isn't really any true evil in that creature, and just nothing but the worst things always happen to it.
Yeah.
But just the mental illness, the psychological torture that Peter Parker goes through, being buried alive and having to come back out. And I just thought Craven's Last Hunt was just a masterpiece of a story.
Yeah, I totally agree. Great pick.
That was 1987, so it may have deserved to be higher on our list.
And then the last one I'll throw out if you guys want to do another round. The other X-Men story that for me is the one, and Cliff and I debated Days of Future Past, and I feel like that storyline sets up the dark future and the concept that from then on, the X-Men are always battling a future where they're all destroyed. They're always, from that moment on, the X-Men universe is always scared of what the future will bring, right? They're always looking at humans could potentially wipe us out, and we've seen proof, and we're always getting people coming from the future to tell us and remind us of this. How many great X-Men characters are from the future warning us of how bad it's going to turn out? You know, that was the story that kicked that concept off, and it's been running full stream ever since.
It has, and it's just always them, right? Like, how do you create a future where there's survival?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, and two more that came to mind, and they're both DC, would be Kingdom Come, of course, by Mark Waid and Alex Ross. Amazing, right? Beautiful, painted, very gritty. You know, again, lots of moral ambiguity, heroism in modern times, etc. And Preacher is a big deal. You know?
Yeah.
Talk about exploitive and provocative and genre bending.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you could do a whole discussion around Vertigo and the way it changed comics over and over again.
Had the Infinity Gauntlet in there because that changed Marvel on a cosmic level forever.
Cliff brought that up when our original list. He included Infinity Gauntlet. We just felt like all the things that it did were covered by, Crisis, or they were covered by Secret Wars, or they
was
were
already kind of done before.
It certainly emphasized it in a new way, wrote it in bold, in a way that had never been done before.
Yeah,
in that way, for sure.
It was still elements of things that have been done before. It just did it differently, which counts for something for sure, but not as much as like, boom, this is the first time.
Right.
I can agree with that. I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah, Brother John mentions The Killing Joke. And I agree with The Killing Joke, but also The Killing Joke isn't even as old as like Kraven the Last Hunt. And Kraven the Last Hunt does more psychological deep dive than The Killing Joke does.
Here's a wild. I know a couple people in the chat have mentioned some more modern ones, but here's a question to consider. Have we had anything in the last, say, 20 years that has changed comics? Any stories in the last 20 years? Is there anything you've read that you feel like, wow, comics are different now because of that?
Mostly in a bad way.
Because I struggled to come up with any, and I kept thinking it over. And the reason why I think everything landed between, the early 70s to the late 90s was because comics have been very static in a lot of ways since then, in the sense that even when big changes happen, they get undone pretty soon after, and we go back to what we were. There's not been a lot of change that's lasting, and impact has been lessened, I think, as a result.
And I think that has a lot to do with one of Cliff's points earlier, right? When you're restarting a title every 2 years, it's hard to have stuff that's going to impact the future of
Sure.
comics. Every time, if you're resetting your, I mean, what we've had like 7 Silk titles in the last couple of years. We've had, all these characters, number ones. Oh, you know what? A new writer came on. Let's do a number 1 again. Another writer, number 1. Another artist, number 1. Why? Just
right. I mean, you look at a character like Batman, and other than getting a son, which shout out Grant Morrison, what has changed for Batman in the last 30 years? Like, how has Batman changed and his universe changed in 30 years? Because even when he loses his money, he gets his money back.
Not new,
right?
Right.
But Alfred has been dead for 5 years, and he's still dead.
He's still dead.
That Superman was dead for 2 years. Marvel had Wolverine dead for 5 years out of pettiness, as we know. The Marvel,
with the Fox Studios,
But Alfred, to DC's credit, Alfred has been dead for 5 years. Incredible. But and the focus on Bruce becoming a better father in his way as a result. Not that the main title is doing a good job of that right now. I'll give them that, but it is, but I can't think of any story that made me feel anything. And look, even if Infinite Crisis is not perfect, it's so funny because brother John has a mystical power to trigger me. And
well, that's because he's related to Jim.
Right, but Trigger Jim's power is very direct and in person. Where Brother John, it's like a mystical spiritual connection, and the trigger doesn't feel like it's like someone hurt me. It just feels like my soul exploded to find out greater truths. All-Star Superman changed storytelling. Yes, All-Star Superman is a great Superman story, and if nothing else, it's great for Superman perspective.
So here to that point, and to the point that Mastodon makes, if anything changes, it'll be ND's more prominent. For me, the bigger reason that I feel like it hasn't happened in the last 30 years is there's this competing force. One where they want characters to stay the same because nobody likes their characters to change. Everything's got to stay the same, and people are getting older and they want to see some big things happen to their characters, and those competing forces butt heads a lot. So you got guys like Grant Morrison coming in. I'm going to change Batman. I'm going to give him a son. I'm going to make Robin Batman. I'm going to do all these things. You got him coming in on X-Men. I'm going to blow up Genosha. I'm going to kill almost all the X-Men. I'm going to relaunch this whole thing. I feel like talents like Grant Morrison come in, and then immediately on the heels of it, editorial comes in and says, yeah, but we got to put it all back together again now because the next guy's coming in and we got to, clean up your mess, man. Clean up your mess. And I think the problem is you have the fans that want characters to expand. And then you have fans that are like, don't screw up my character. How dare you mess up my character? He can't change. And I hate that the mentality, the battle of that drives me crazy.
That too. And it's easy for people to get caught up in what they love, right? I love Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Sure. But it didn't change comics.
No.
So it's tough, right? Because
you change on Kara's
because we're talking about events that changed and had an impact on how comics were made after that, good or bad. And what you get confused easily is you start talking about your favorites because it's always in your heart,
right?
And a lot of these are our favorites. They didn't necessarily change comics, like I always talk about Camelot 3000. It's one of my all-time favorite reads. I can read that book anytime. It did a lot of stuff. It's great on every level, but it didn't change comics. It was the first maxi series. That's you can give it that credit, but it didn't change the course of what was done.
But I mean, I think of one of my favorite runs of Daredevil runs from Joe Quesada and Kevin Smith all the way through Mark Waid. And what you get is a lot of great evolution. Oh, Jesus Christ. A lot of evolution to that character in that universe. I think you look at, David Mack comes in, he makes huge changes, adds big things. You look, Bendis comes in, he makes huge changes, big growth, and then he leaves Daredevil in jail. Brubaker comes in, he's got to write this story of Daredevil in jail. Mark Waid comes in after with a slightly different visual aesthetic taste, but like continues the story. I think they're allowed to do things on some of those side characters that they would never let them do with Spider-Man or Batman. And I think that's just editorial folly, in my opinion.
Right. Well, that and we were touching on it when Spider-Man was best. Like he was progressing, right?
Yeah.
He was a student. Yes. Then he was in college. Then he was a teacher. Then he had, his life was going in stages.
And I think what we get from something like Spider-Man Life Story is the reality that like maybe if we stuck with it and let him age, we would get something really powerful out of it. And if he needs to hand off the reins at some point, decades down the line, there could be some juice to that. But like reverting him to a kid every so often and starting over.
We don't need that because they made a young Spider-Man. You have Miles Morales for that to fit that role now.
Sure. And now Spider-Boy. Even younger. Yo, him going school to school just so he could get free food in the cafeteria until people realize he shouldn't be there kills me. But I love it. And it really reminds me of all I can't read and type and
I love you, man. I can't wait to hang out with you someday.
I don't even know. You're pointing down. I'm like, what are we pointing at? What are we doing? I'm answering Callie. I'm trying to contribute to the conversation. I want to be omnipresent. Damn it, Chris the Comic Man. I want to be omnipresent.
If we keep doing a series like this, like every couple months, and we could take it to all our channels. It doesn't just have to be on my channel. We can do it on John's channel.
Cliff's like, okay, then what's the next homework assignment? Let me write.
Then we can do it on Cliff's channel, and then we can just keep jumping channels and spread the love.
Kneel before
me. I mean, I already wrote out. It took me all day, but I got Cliff's homework list for tonight.
There you go.
I'm gonna heat vision it. I'll be like, see you in September. And worse, if my comic pitch gets picked up, I'm like, y'all are really gonna have trouble seeing me. I'm gonna be like, I'm too busy writing gay.
Oh, but no, guys, great show. Thank you guys so much. One, for being game to do this. Two, when I was thinking about doing this show, it had to be you two. One, because you guys got great chemistry together. Two, your personalities are great. And besides all that, you guys have some of the best comic knowledge of anyone out there. You guys recall your comic knowledge. That has value to it. And, I wish my recall with the stories I read was as fantastic as your recall is.
What? Thanks, just brother. Because I nearly gave you every page of the Death of Supergirl?
You gotta have an eidetic memory, dude. Your memory is amazing.
So good. My memory is tied to emotion, and it took me a long time to get the Death of Flash and Death of Supergirl. And when I finally got them, I read them, I cried, I reread them, I read the poetry at the back. I went to the library to learn about the poetry. Like, yeah, that's right. I went to the fucking library. That's what it was like back then. My God, I feel like a boomer talking right now. And
I walk my girls to the library all the time.
Yeah, I know, but it's different. It's like more fun now. Like, oh, I get my books digitally right at the counter. Like, yeah, no. I had to go in. I was like, do you know this poem? How do I find this? Let me go in the card catalog. Oh,
God bless librarians, like the Great Legend show. He was a librarian.
God bless.
Oh yeah, just I don't. Me personally, the only time I've been to libraries in the last 20 years was when I knew they were having like a sale on the old novels they were getting rid of, and I'd go in there and I'd pick up some.
Smart man.
I don't know. I'm the type of reader, whereas if I want to read it, I'm going to buy it and own it.
I get it. I think a lot of collectors are like that.
Because when I read something and love it, there's no way I can't give it. I can't give it up.
That's the danger.
Captain? All right. So anyway, John, what's coming up for you, sir?
Tomorrow's my birthday. And,
happy birthday. How old are you going to be?
47.
You're not a woman. Just tell us. 47.
40,
Got it.
47. Yeah. And I'm doing my morning show, the usual morning show. I'm unboxing a few things, having a few laughs, and then spending the rest of the day with family. And then Sunday night should be Dungeons and Dragons over on JP's channel. I will say, just did a video with Magic Lasso on Wednesday night on his channel. We were breaking down Justice League of America issue 1 and Avengers issue 1 and comparing them across the 3 years gap between them to look at who had the better cover, who had the better story, who had the better character development, who had the better interior art. And you can leave comments on that video. So far, Justice League of America is winning the debate. JLA versus Avengers issue number 1 is in the can. But cruise over, leave a comment. It was a very entertaining chat, and we'll be back on my channel soon for Avengers issue 2 and JLA issue 2.
Apparently, you're doing D&D on White Whale's channel.
Did I say JP's channel? Sorry. Yeah, it's White Whale Comics channel. Sorry. Thanks, JP. He was our DM for the longest time.
I have never, ever played a game of Dungeons and Dragons in my life.
I mean, it's a very complicated activity, but a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm not dissing it. It's just one of those things I've never done. All right, Cliff, what's coming up for you, sir?
Apparently, I'm going to run a D&D game for you at some point. But we'll keep it simple. But coming up for me, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Comics and Coffee with Cliff with my special guest, a little-known gentleman, Gary B., the casual comic guy.
I had to be on... Right, I didn't want Jackson Roykirk to miss me, so I had to add another slot to my week.
Yes, you did. I appreciate it. And you know me, I love adding a slot.
Now, what do we do on your show, Cliff? Let for people who don't know, what happens on your Saturday show?
Well, we have some coffee. I torture my guests with a game that I call Rate It or Hate It. And it's just lovely. So I'll pick a topic and we're just going to rate it or hate it. Usually everybody's nice and they rate things, even though we kind of hate it. I had a lot of fun with DJ. DJ was not afraid to say hate it. I was like, yeah, let's do it. Yes, another show. See, this is what I get for reading comments and talking at the screen. This is just too much. And now I have 2 monitors. So now I'm one of those people. I'm a 2-monitor guy now. So it's so much worse. So yeah, tomorrow morning with you, which would be great. My evening is going to be with friends. Hopefully the weather doesn't ruin that. Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern, Council of Comics with our newest council member, C-Bizzle. And we'll be doing the final entry of the Blade series, Blade Trinity. And then we'll move on to our next trilogy pick of the year. And Monday night, New Keys and Hot Comics at 8 p.m. Eastern. And Wednesday night, 8 p.m. live for New Comic Book Day, where my storyline is I'm not buying any new damn comics. So that'll be really fun. Hashtag destroy the empire. I'm tired. Do we need 42 covers for Spider-Man 51? Do we need 42 covers for Amazing Spider-Man 52? Do we need to keep reading that garbage? Do I need a crossover between all these terrible characters over at DC?
I think I'm down to 3 books a month at this point.
Even better. Fight the empire. So anyhow, look forward to seeing all of you on all my live episodes. It'll be great. Gary and I are going to have a wonderful time tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to it.
And that's at what time?
10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
You got that, Jackson?
Eastern Standard Time.
All right. So coming up for me, we have Steve the Voice White, I think doing his second or third 10-1-1 Tuesday. It's so funny. I got guys with stacks of books ready to go. They just love being on the show.
I love it.
Can I come on again? I'm like, yes, you can come on again.
Yeah.
And then making his 10-1-1 debut on the 27th, you've already seen him twice on In the Hot Seat where he did his face reveal the first time. We have Jerry the Jitterbug, who's going to come on, look better than all of us again, and show some great Golden Age comics and Silver Age, I'm sure. But that's what I got coming up. And then next month is just already booked up. But my first 10-1-1 guest will be Otaku, and he'll be on, and that'll be on the 2nd. I am taking the 4th off because that's my birthday. And on my birthday, I like to do a little something called Jack Shit. All right. On my birthday, I don't like to be responsible for a damn thing, and I don't like to do anything. I just like to be calm on my birthday.
I have a different activity called Jack Shit, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
I will not be doing that on my birthday. But gentlemen, I cannot tell you how much fun it is to always have you guys on the show. Thank you so much for coming on and spending time. John, thanks for doing the homework and not bitching like the other guests. I really appreciate it. No.
John, thanks for being that guy who was like, hey, you've got your homework is going to be team assignments. Thanks for being that guy delivering on the team assignment while I just jump in and act like I knew about everything all along. So thank you for being that guy, for being a champ about it. I'm so sorry that it's your birthday tomorrow. If I had known, maybe I would have put more effort in.
No way, brother. This was a blast, man. I appreciate it.
I felt like I brought enough passion to the project that maybe I was used to.
I mean, take it up a little bit next time and we'll get there, I think.
All right, yeah, I think he was missing some enthusiasm.
So I got to give you every key moment of every issue of what the next 12 issue series. All right.
Correct.
And exactly when you broke the tier in that issue. But guys, thank you so much. And the audience, we had a great audience tonight. Thank you guys for coming out to support these two gentlemen. Their knowledge is fantastic. Some of the best in the comics industry, Toro. These guys are amazing people. Thank you guys for being on. Thank you to the audience. Always a pleasure. And I cannot wait to do more stuff with you guys in the future. But you won't have to wait too long, Jackson, because you'll see me with Cliff tomorrow. So you can rest easy tonight when you go to bed, Jackson. You just got to wake up, open your eyes, and I'll be there. On that horrifying note, as I like to end these things, we are going to say, keep it casual. We're going to play our little thing as soon as I can find it because I'm too busy laughing. And keep it casual.